Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and today I am thrilled to welcome InStory expert Leslie Brown. Hi, Leslie.
Hi there.
So Leslie is a guide to help people to come home to their body and to realign with their true nature, which is super cool. And she's going to explain more what that is all about and what that means. So start, Leslie, by saying a little bit more about what that means, and then kind of what happened to you as a kid and kind of the journey that's led you here.
Okay. Well, for me, coming home to the body has been a lifelong journey. And true nature also for me is that I was very connected to nature outside my entire life, but I didn't know how to bring that into me and to have a reciprocal relationship where I wasn't separate from nature, but I am one with it. And then that helps me to feel more grounded and more centered. And yeah, it's like I don't have to go outside to feel it. I can feel it when I'm inside now too.
Okay, so tell us a little of your story though, because like when you were a kid, right? There was a big difference, as I remember, because you're an InStory, know more of your story, but that I just want you to talk about that difference between when you were outside, what it was like for you, and then when you went in your house. Like, just that's a visceral description. I think is significant.
Okay. So I lived on my grandparents' property till I was 9 years old. So there was two homes. There was our home and there was theirs not too far away. And we lived in a cul-de-sac. So after school, we spent the entire day outside until the bell got rung at nighttime and it was dinner time. And the difference between my house where I lived with my parents and at that point I had two older brothers and a younger brother. It was a very stressful home at where I lived. Or if I went to my grandparents' home, it was quiet, but they were kind of depressed themselves. So there was such a vast difference between being outside in the wild nature with the friends in the neighborhood or in one of these two homes. And so it was a stark contrast, really. So nature was always safe for me, and it was the place where I felt more at home than inside the home.
But didn't you talk about how that difference, where that was where you had like body intuition that you trusted when you
Yes,
were outside?
yes, I trusted nature 100%, I think. I mean, I played it, we would do the polywog thing in the stream and the frogs and jumping on the trampoline. I trusted my body. I trusted my body then until I went into the house. And so it was a big disconnect, like, and little by little, it got harder to trust the body. And then when we moved when I was 9, away from my grandparents and away from that neighborhood, we lived on a horse farm that was pretty much secluded. So there was no other people other than the family on this horse farm. So it was either school or it was down at the barn with the horses where it was wild and crazy, or it was in home where you were shut down yeah, pretty much. So there was such contrast, it became harder to figure out which is the real me. I lost that.
So tell us a little bit about your journey and what happened to you as you kind of became older and went as a worker into the workforce.
Well, let's back up a little bit. Okay, so I rode horses when I was a teenager, and I competed with the horses, and I did really well with that because I think when I was on a horse, I could 100% be in my body, and because I trust animals, I could trust this animal, and so we were in a reciprocal relationship that felt real. And then when I was 16, I fell off one of my horses, and I broke my leg, my femur, and my wrist at the same time, and ended up in a wheelchair for a couple months.
Wow.
And back then, there was no physical therapy. There was nothing like that. And I ended up going from the wheelchair to a new high school. So I started a new life at the same time that my body was broken. And drugs and alcohol became a way for me to self-medicate not only the physical pain in my body, but the scariness of I'm in a new school, I don't know anybody, And what happened was, because there was no physical therapy back then, when I got on a horse after I was out of the wheelchair, I didn't feel that same connection anymore.
Wow.
Because I was so out of balance with everything that had happened with, I broke the left side of my body. So the right side got overly muscular and the left side got atrophied. So I've literally been out of alignment my whole life until 7 years ago.
Wow.
And so what I did in the work world was, I did a lot of mechanical things. Like I was in the service industry for a while doing heating and air conditioning. I worked in an office. Then my ex-husband and I started a heating and air conditioning business. And I got sober when I was 32. And I was in 12-step for 10 years. And around 42, I got curious and I wanted to know, why did I make the choice of substances back then? Like what was it that was going on that made that decision for me? So I went back to school and got my social work license, social work degree and license, and worked in a high school as a crisis counselor for 8 years. And then that there was a lot of crisis going on when I was there. It was a very stressful job. I loved working with the teenagers. I really felt, it was almost like when I was riding horses again, like I could connect with them and on that level as a horse almost. It was like the reciprocal. Mm-hmm. I related to them a lot because of the struggles I had as a teenager, but the stress of the job was getting really intense and I didn't know I wasn't in my body enough to know how to manage the stress. And then one day I was walking through the high school in 2012 and heard a voice from inside of me that said, I will die if I stay here. Wow. And it was almost like that was what made me come home to me. I've been running away from me pretty much my whole life, whether it was using a substance or it was helping somebody else. I didn't know how to help myself. I didn't know how to be in my body enough to listen to my body and what it was telling me.
Wow. But you're not the first person I've interviewed who had a moment like, if I stay in this, I'm going to die. And that a voice just came to me. I mean, that is that intuitive higher guidance that you heard.
Yeah. And I trusted it. Like I had a choice. Yeah. Like, do you just squash it or do you trust it?
Right. What do you think allowed you to trust it?
I think the voice was so clear and my health was deteriorating. I mean, I'd had pneumonia, I had all these chronic health conditions that they didn't know what was causing it. And now I understand it was stress. It was all stress related.
Wow.
But, and I was burnt out and it was just like, this is it. There's, I had done workshops. I had done a bunch of different things and I could feel relaxed. Like if I did a weekend workshop, but I couldn't bring that relaxed feeling home. Mm-hmm. So I would come right back into my regular life in the job, and the stress was like right back again. I didn't know how to sustain it, I guess.
So what did you do?
I had already, some intuitive voice already had me searching online for holistic programs. Like something intuitively told me I needed to know more than just social work and 12-step. Like there's there's a missing piece here for me. So I'd already been researching a holistic life coaching program that was in person. I wanted to do an in-person program and it was out in California. And so I ended up packing up my entire life on the East Coast and moved across the country by myself to attend this life coaching program because I knew I needed a full spectrum approach to what was going on with me in order to then heal myself so then I could maybe help other people. Mm-hmm. And I loved that program, but there was still another missing piece for me in that. Okay. Like we worked with the subconscious and that was helpful to learn all about that, but the body was still not in the picture there. And then I saw that I was watching a telesummit like this and I saw a Qigong teacher on the telesummit and I just knew immediately that's what I need to learn and that's who I need to learn it from. And he happened to be not, like 3 hours away from where I lived at that point. And so I signed up and, went through the program. And that was 6 years ago, 6 years this month. And that has helped me to take all my prior life, personal life experience and the educational experience and help coalesce it into a more clear, full-bodied, holistic approach that's helped me heal the chronic health conditions, and just feel safe being in here. I never felt safe being in here unless I was on a horse or I was climbing a tree.
Which is so not where other people feel safe, just saying. So now tell us a little bit about what have you learned from Qigong, and how have you started to integrate this, and how is it helping you? Because the one things we talked about, since we're in this whole world of the coronavirus right now, that you were saying, but this is like strengthening your immune system. And we talked a little bit about how, like we were having this conversation about joy and saying it's so important. So I want you to talk about some of the things that are really have been helpful for you in learning. And you can even share sort of the images of what didn't work and what does work, but share some tips that can help people to begin to manage the stress that they're probably experiencing.
Okay. So one of the reasons that Qigong spoke to me so intuitively and holistically was that the way that this guy teaches it, it's all based on nature. And everything is, most poses or most moves are named after nature. So I felt immediate resonance with it. And it's all about the yin yang balance, which I knew nothing about back then. And I realized how out of alignment I was. So I'm going to share this photo. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I realized in hindsight was that I was much safer climbing, either up in my head with the tree, being in the tree, and my family didn't know how to be in their root system, so they couldn't show me how to be in their root system, right? And so one of the things that Qigong talks about is that we have 3 energy centers. We have the upper center, which is the universal center, which is our spiritual life, okay? Then we have the heart center, which is our inner relationships, our relationship with nature and with other people. And then we have the earth center, which is the belly center, which is our roots. Our legs are going down into the ground. And the roots, the earth center, is where our power comes from. Now, I was upside down because I always thought my power was coming from here, right?
Right.
I had a wide open heart and I was living up here, but I had no root system, which is why I burnt out. That now I understand that. And I understand that I was probably never not burnt out. Like I was raised in a household where everybody was burnt out. Wow. So learning the root system and the yin balance has been very difficult for me. It's been scary because that's the calm, that's the quiet, that's the dark, that's the sleep, that's the relaxed, okay? And that was not my go-to place. It was up, out, and let's go, All right, so here's my little show and tell. So I volunteered at a garden organic vegetable garden for a couple of years when I moved out to California. And what helped me, and this is another intuitive, metaphorical thing. So the woman that was running it over the wintertime, she would start seeds in little pots. And then by the time spring, like right around now, they had started to sprout. And then she would bring them to the garden, and we would have to take them out of the little pot and mess with the soil and stick them in the earth. And I realized, that was I was stuck in a pot my whole life. Like I couldn't get the earth I couldn't get my roots into the earth because there was a pot, whether it was the energy was frozen here or whether I was relying on some outside substance to help me feel safe or that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so what I realized is that, and I'm making peace with the universe and God and whoever you want to call it at this point, that there's a lot of times when I've gotten hit hard with a crisis kind of thing. And then I realize now that was life trying to get me out of the pot and get me planted. And
Wow.
so I had a choice. Like when I moved to California, and I said to the woman when I first started this program, I feel like I'm here to repot myself. And I had no idea what I meant by that until like 3 years later when I'm working out the garden. I was like, that was it. I need to get I need to get out of the container and into the real soil of the earth.
Wow.
And so then there's been a lot of crisis stuff that's happened to me since I've lived here, but I'm holding the higher vision that that's just life helping me remove the pot, not grab another pot, not get a slightly bigger pot and repot myself. It's like this time I have to root all the way down. And what I'm finding is that when I can hold that full alignment, that's when the joy is circulating through. Like that's when the yin and yang is circulating. Can you see these circles here?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So when we know how to relax at the end of the day, which is the yin, and then the sun comes up in the morning and then we come into our yang, right? And we can be our full energetic self. One of the things that I learned in Qigong is that when I'm in joy and when I'm in love, that's boosting my immune system. And they've done studies on this, that boosts your immune system like 60%. Wow. As opposed to when I'm stuck in a pot and I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling stuck and I'm not knowing how to get this full alignment going. And when I do Qigong now, it's like I feel the natural joy going just from the movement. It's not coming from anybody or anything. It's just coming from moving the energy and getting it flowing again. It's like a free, all natural, vitality booster, immune system booster. And here's the other thing. Since I've moved here, every year when I go for the physical, my blood test keeps getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. So it's like, okay, I trust that it's working, you know?
It's so, I love metaphor, and in InStory we teach metaphor so much, but that metaphor of being in the pot and a crisis breaking the pot, like in a weird way, it's like our world is being broken out of our pot, so to speak, right, so that we can replant in the earth. I think what you're saying about how when you're moving and you feel joy in your body, it completely shifts out of that stress response, that stress place.
And I don't need to grab, because I put down substances, the drugs and the alcohol, but it didn't mean that I used to pick up food or something, or a cat. Like I've been pretty codependent on cats most of my life, but I now realize that I know how to manage my energy and feel joy when it's just me, myself, and I, and moving this energy. And so, and in a lot of ways with the coronavirus, and we're being, told to stay home, and it's like, I feel like we're being given a chance for everybody to come home to their true selves, mm-hmm. right? And for me, I feel like it's like holding my hand to the fire to strengthen my spiritual muscle, not to get, because I can go off into the stress, I've got PTSD from a long time ago. So it's like, okay, how can you manage it now with everything that's going on around here? Can you manage naturally the stress response and keep your nervous system balanced versus having to reach for, an extra piece of chocolate or whatever,
Right. And so that we talked about that a little bit, about what are these natural ways to strengthen your immunity, not just how do you get away from everybody, but how do you also, I think we have to talk about how do you connect to joy, how do you reduce your stress, how do you feel elevated?
Right.
So talk a little bit more about this work of realigning and embodying, and just a couple of more things that you have learned from Qigong that you think will be helpful to people.
Well, especially for the time that we're in right now. Okay, yeah. So when we have these 3 energy centers, and this is what I can speak from personal experience from this, okay? If you grew up in a household where emotions were not to be had, you were seen and not heard, and the only people that had a chance to have the emotions were the adults, and the kids were pretty much stayed in their little boxes. So all of that energy is what got stuck in the pot, okay? And that's the primal energy. it's the personal energy that, like, the earth center is our personal energy. It's our body. Okay. And so if that's all been tapped down and kept below, then it can't come up to the heart center, which is the nature center. Okay. And the heart center is where we connect with other people. But we need the vitality from below to come up to the heart in order to then, you know, be in relationship from overflow versus coming from, you know, I'm shut off from my earth center, so I'm going to overgive, which was what I did. I overgave, you know, and I didn't know how to receive, whether it was from the universe, whether it was from other people. I was in a shutdown mode that the only thing that was safe to receive was drugs, alcohol, or food, you know, a substance or a cat, you know. So now what I'm finding is that when I can open up this pot, right, it's open, and this vitality can rise, and I can be with people from overflow and from a more joyful place versus a shame-based or fear-based or guilt-based or, you know, all those lower vibrational energies. And I heard someone say that the lower 3 chakras, which is the earth center, is where our authentic nature is. So if we're not coming from the earth center, we're not really being our authentic self. We're coming from a wounded child response. That's what I was doing. I was the overgiver as a kid, and that was the way I stayed safe, by just taking care of everybody else.
Right.
But it wasn't coming from my true self. It was still coming from an old safety mechanism. So now when I'm resourced from the earth, when I give, I know intuitively when I say no and when I say yes with other people, and then it's coming from overflow versus a sense of emptiness.
Right.
And then I can rise even higher and then open up to the transpersonal realm of universe, God, whatever you want to call it, you know, or the sun, you know. So then I've got this alignment between the sun and the earth. And then so the plant can go, and each year the roots go deeper and the branches can go taller. And then when these winds of change, you know, come through like they are right now, then when we're in alignment, we're stronger, and we know how to, we can become stronger versus getting blown over.
Right. 100%, because you're rooted and you have flexibility, but you have roots as well. And, you know, we talked about burnout, like then you're not burned out. And I remember you said, you know, you feel like you were born burned out, so to speak.
Exactly. So as a little kid, I was an overdoer, an overgiver, you know. And I heard this the other day too, that so the kidneys is the burn, you know. Kidneys are what are like the batteries of the body. And the adrenals, which sit right on top of the kidneys, that's the yang part, and the kidneys are the yin. So if there's too much adrenaline and too much, you know, of that, that's what burns us out. So if you grow up in a very stressful household, your adrenaline has been going nonstop. And then I was an adrenaline junkie for a lot. That was what I thought love was.
Right.
You know, that spike, you know, like, ooh, you know, but it's like, no, that's, you know, that's meant for short-term bursts of energy, not for having your foot on the gas nonstop 24 hours a day.
Right. Well, look, I think this is a very, very timely and important topic about how people can heal now naturally, keep your body healthy, feel better, and not feel the fear, because fear can make everything worse. So talk a little bit about what your free gift is and how people can use it, so that we can help people to use these tools to help themselves.
Okay, so the free gift, I did a guided meditation, and it's on a PDF. And it's called Your Crystal Cave. And what it is it's a guided process where you're walking through nature. And I recommend that people, if they can, read it out loud to themselves, or even better, if you can record it in your own voice. And it's a self-healing journey. And it's really the coming home to the body part. And what I realized for myself is when I was so disconnected from myself and looking for always something or someone out there to help soothe me, that I needed to learn how to hear my own voice and my own soothing nature in a lot of ways to help my younger parts realize that there really is a safe adult on board in here that wants her to be safe, you know, and so that's the guided process that helps you just bring nature into it, but then also the self-healing journey.
And what I love about it is that it's written down. So download it and then read it into something like your memo thing on your phone. Read it and play it for yourself, which is a very powerful thing to do, because then you're going to hear yourself speaking to yourself. Really, people in our group have tried it, and it's it's a very powerful, very healing. And as Leslie was saying, it's like so perfect for the situation that we're in right now, to be doing self-healing work. What the heck? Why not? Right? Like, we want to use these tools.
Really, we're the only ones that can manage our own stress.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried every way to manage stress outside of here. And then I realized, no, I'm the only one that can manage that. Right. I have the power. I grew up feeling so powerless. And then I realized, no, now I'm an adult, I have the power to manage this, but I needed to be taught how to do that.
Right.
Because we're not taught that.
We're not. 100%. We're not taught to trust our intuition, trust our bodies, do self-healing, you know, and even now everybody's saying distancing and social, but nobody's really, I mean, we are in our smaller communities teaching into healing, but I think that's what's so exciting, that this interview series is exactly right now.
It's energy hygiene. It's the energy hygiene.
Right. Oh,
we
yeah.
Wash our hands and all that. And now we work on managing our own energy, because then that's the best antidote for your immune system. Right. And then you're rippling out healing energy towards other people as well. So that's raising the vibration of everybody around you.
I love that so much. Energy hygiene, people. I said, Leslie, do you make that up? And she's like, yes, I did. Energy hygiene. This is a big part of Leslie's, like, her complete giftedness. And when you get her free gift, you're going to get an email address to reach out to her, because you can actually work with her to do a 3-step process to clear all of these energy centers and to heal, literally clear and heal your immune system so that you're healthier, so that you can resist things and stay healthy. Like, this inner energy is part of what keeps us healthy.
And it's fun. It's like the little younger parts of you get to come out and play. Because that's where the energy is.
Right. We were talking about how it's not required to be miserable. It's not a requirement. We can bring joy into this whole time period to lift our energy up and to heal. And so, you know, I'm all about that. Like, how do you lift the energy up? How do you shift? How do you use your stories? So, all right. So Leslie, share a little bit about how, since you're an InStory expert, a little bit about the power of InStory in the InStory way, and how it intersects with some of the work you do and how it's helped you. And then I'll have you leave us with a few other last words of inspiration after that.
Okay. All right. So what InStory's done for me, I see the parallel with Qigong. So in Qigong, in a very non-judgmental way, we are finding places in our body where there's still energy that's stuck, and it's usually stuck from a very long time ago that didn't get a chance to be expressed or moved at that particular point. And so you almost melt it with love, and then you get it back into circulation, so your immune system goes up. And when we do the weekly guided process, I feel like it's almost like another version of that we're getting an image, and I did learn that the body speaks in images. So every week we get an image, and for me it's been a lot about past circumstances, childhood, memories, that sort of thing. And then I bring them home and I talk about them, and so little by little they're getting thawed out and melted and brought back into the embodiment process and my true nature. And so it's like this, it's a constant, they're all coming together at the same time. And then the tree can grow because the inner child is happy. When the inner child is happy and the mother's on board, then they're doing pretty good.
Right. And then you're able to start sharing your gifts with the world,
Right.
right? Because that, I think it's being asked of us so much to share our gifts with the world. So wherever you are right now, click the link, get the meditation, go through it, then share with us in the Facebook group if you have an insight and experience what it's like for you, and then email Leslie, let her know what's going on, and reach out if you want to go and do 3 steps to really stay healthy. Like if we're going to stay in this state, we may as well do it with healing, love, joy, and like this realigned and embodied energy. Let's raise it up. So Leslie, to wrap up, leave us with just a few last words of inspiration.
I would say, especially because we're in the times that we are, and because I've used all these garden metaphors and everything, that if we can look at past experiences or energy that's, pain in the body, it could be something calling for our attention that just wants to be loved back home. And then that can be used as compost. We don't have to take we can take negative experiences. Like I've learned a lot from negative experiences that I went through, that I took myself through, as a younger person. And that's become compost to then feed the new growth that's of me as a mature adult at this point. And then it feels more in alignment. And we have, like, Mother Earth is here to work with us. She wants to regenerate. She doesn't want us to trash her, but she's willing to work with us to be the mutual healing process with us. So when my Earth center is aligned with her Earth, then there's always help here to help sustain us and build our immune systems naturally.
100%. And so practice energy hygiene as well. Strengthen and heal your immune systems naturally. Get Leslie's free gift. Reach out to her. Leslie, thank you. I just love what you do in the world so much.
Thank you. I love InStory, and it's been such a pleasure. I'm so glad you're doing this topic and the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knew, right?
Right.
Except God, right? So everybody, take steps. Get her free gift. Jump in the Facebook group. Do these practices to nourish your soul, to tap into your own joy. And as I always say in farewell, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, everybody.
Bye.